Welcome everybody to the February 24th, 2021 CALPADS Q&A. My name is Paul Higgins. I'm a data analyst working at Census supporting CALPADS. Just to get general housekeeping rules out of the way, please edit your name in the participant list so it reflects your first, last, and organization you represent. After we get through the announcements, we're going to suggest you start writing your questions in the chat box. We'll go through them as they're received. Based on the volume of people in, we are going to ask you that you label your questions Q1, Q2, Q3. We will do all the Q1s, and then we will return to the question 2, 3, or 4 as time allows. If you have an open CALPADS Service Desk ticket open on your issue, please don't bring it up here. Please stay with your service agent working on the problem so we don't muddy the waters. We don't want to have something said here that's not reflected in the ticket that then you're acting on. Based on, let's see, if your question requires a lot of background contextual setup, this is not the venue for that question. I would ask that you please open a Service Desk ticket if you have a question that fits those parameters. If you're new or have never attended training, this is a good place to learn just by osmosis, but it's not a training environment. It is not structured as a training environment. Let's see, as a reminder, the CALPADS Q&A is a recorded event that is available on our YouTube channel for future review. For announcements, we did have a maintenance build yesterday. The release update has been sent to CTE and it should be published soon. Okay. As to the Fall 2 deadline, we have no news. However, CTE has announced that they will be sending out a message by the end of the day to discuss or make an announcement as to what they're planning on doing with regard to the deadline. Also, we are very well aware that the posting queue is very backlogged. We had the DBAs and backend folks, combing through it, and they did find some problems that they sorted out. But there was a huge backlog, and that's just being worked through. And since Fall 2 files are generally larger than Fall 1 files, think the CRSE and the SCSE file types, they're huge. So they do take up a lot more space and a lot more memory in the system. So the system is functioning poorly due to that, in addition to the problems that were uncovered and remedied. Let's see. Angela, you got anything?
Yeah, it's also the upload queue, not just post, that's really backed up. When I last checked, I think there were like 1,700 jobs waiting to process. And something I noticed that was interesting, there was a lot of SINF files that we don't typically see this time of year, but I remembered that you guys are probably updating your addresses for the P-EBT. So SINF happens to be our most sluggish file in terms, but usually on the post side. But so like Paul said, though, the DBAs found something on the upload side this morning. And so we're just still getting through that backlog. What else was I going to say? That we did have some new bugs that came out of the release yesterday. And so those should be on the known issues that Alex is bringing up there.
When you're logged into CALPADS at the bottom of the page, right?
Yeah, it looks like a couple are missing. Oh, no, there it is. The Fall 2 snapshot 4.4 report, the first one there listed, you get an object not found. I just logged another one for with that same error for all of the anomaly reports are doing that as well. The workaround for the anomaly one is to use the screen, the interface, instead of the reports. That's all I had, Paul.
All righty. And with that, I'm just going to jump right over to the chat box and start with Tiffany's question. Tiffany asks, if there's only one EL student in a class and the student has a LIP code 307, parent opted out, there are no EL services being provided on 10/7/2020, 5 no EL services. What, if any, are the implications for this when the data are certified and reported publicly? Yeah, let's go to Brandy on that one.
Do you want to try and take a stab at it, Paul?
Oh yeah, I'll just dig right in. I'll start researching it as we speak.
All right, I'll answer. Okay, so this parent opted out of an EL program, but the only thing I would caution you, Tiffany, is that typically you would expect that even though the parent has opted out of an EL program, that the teacher may be actually providing some sort of integrated ELD services anyway, right? Because the student actually has a right to service. And so because the student has been identified as an English learner, it just typically means that the student wouldn't be pulled out of class for designated ELD. They wouldn't be in like a special English class or anything like that. But if this is a self-contained class, there may actually be services being provided. And the other thing is, so you may just want to check with the teacher. Does she provide some sort of integrated ELD in that course to that student? If so, use the appropriate code. What are the implications for that service, that student showing up as no EL services? You could potentially get a phone call from our English Learner Support Division asking what's going on. That's the only potential implication at this point.
All out of reporting no services, huh?
Right, because that student will ultimately, particularly if it's a self-contained classroom and you're saying that that kid is not receiving services, it'll be publicly reported on DataQuest. Or actually, no, you know what? I take that back. We don't actually report those data anymore.
I thought it was a legislative,
no,
or a lawsuit. Wasn't it a lawsuit?
It was, but there was no statutory mandate to post the data. We had been for years, and then LEA started getting dinged on it. And when we figured out there was no statutory requirement to publicly post it, we just stopped. So it's not publicly posted, but our EL office does have access to this information. And in addition, it is part of federal program monitoring. So if you are selected for federal program monitoring, that could be a monitoring finding. And yeah.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to Laura. Laura asks, I came across an issue with a particular teacher and the courses we submitted for her fall 2. This is the time we were dividing up our semester into quarters because of the pandemic. Our periods 1, 2, and 3 are a part of our quarter 1, which started on the first day of school, which was 8/18. Our Q2 did not start until 10/19 for periods 4, 5, and 6. I'm coming across an issue with a teacher who did not start until 10/19 for Q2, and because of this, I'm getting a Cert 54. Let me just cut to the chase. Fall 2 is reporting as of Census Day. What was going on 10/7? So if that course did not start until 10/19, it shouldn't be reported in Fall 2. And the Cert 54 is that no course assignment for a teacher, if I recall correctly, and that is because there's nothing that's going on as of Census Day, but you have probably loaded a SAS file for that staff member, identifying him/her as a teacher, but because there's no course in there with them as the teacher of record, the cert error is triggering. So if this is all as I stated, then you need to go back and remove that SAS record for that staff member and make sure that you are only reporting periods 1, 2, and 3 for your Q1, because that Q2 didn't start until 2 weeks after Census Day.
So Paul, I have a question for Brandy. Wouldn't you consider this scenario similar to like block scheduling where, on Census Day, they weren't attending, their Thursday class, but they were attending their Wednesday classes?
Yeah, except these are in different quarters, right?
Okay.
And can I interject? Cert 54 is staff demographics is missing.
Oh, my mistake. Well, in that case,
because the hire date was after information day.
There you go.
We're not pulling it into the snapshot.
But you probably have a SAS record out there. If you have a problem, open up a service desk ticket and we will walk you through that.
Shoot's got a course section out there for that seed, and we can't sync it up with a demographic record because it's after information day.
Gotcha. Okay, let's see, that was Laura, Tiffany. Moving on to Claudia. Claudia says, any two courses with the same group of students and the same teacher have been marked yes for middle school course setting. I did my only ELA history and math and science course, but I was informed that there are other courses with the same teacher and group of students. And I'm scrolling down to see if there's a question asked here. Claudia, I read your setup, but I'm not seeing a question. Just go ahead and tack a question on and I will read the setup again when we kind of come down to it.
So can I just clarify one thing?
Take a shot.
Is that, remember, you're marking courses as middle school core really if that teacher has a multiple subject credential and they're teaching departmentalized courses. That's what's really important to remember, right? It's only necessary to identify middle school course settings if the teacher has a multiple subject credential, but they're teaching departmentalized ELA and history to the same group of kids and math and science to the same group of kids, right? If there are additional subjects that teacher's coring and she has a multiple subject credential and she's teaching these departmentalized subjects to those same group of kids, yes, you should mark those as middle school core, if that's what you're asking. So go ahead, Paul.
Perfect, thank you. Stacy asks, the credentialing analyst at our county office of ed instructed us to enter a local assignment option for all of our teachers who are teaching student assistant courses and or study hall courses. All of our teachers have student assistant courses, so I am worried that this will look like all of our teachers are teaching outside of their credential, and the information will be posted publicly. We brought this up with them, but they said everyone in the state will have the same problem and maintain that we should do it this way. I have heard that other districts are not doing this. Is this correct? It doesn't seem right to me.
Okay, so the general rule for student assistant courses, and Alex is showing you the slide in our presentation that has to do with this, is that if the student is issued a grade or elective credit or there's instruction occurring during this course, then it has to be assigned to a fully credentialed teacher. What does a fully credentialed teacher mean? And by the way, Alex, all of our FAQs are updated as of like 2 weeks. But yeah, the fall 2 FAQs are now posted and they're up to date. So we've got lots of brand new stuff in here. But if it's a homeroom or a student assistant course, it has to have a fully credentialed teacher, which means I have to have basically any credential except for CTE and adult ed credentials. Those don't qualify as full credentials. So as long as those teachers have full credentials, doesn't matter what type of credential, as long as it's a full credential, they should be fine. They shouldn't need a local assignment option. Okay, it's because they can teach it with any full credential. So if your credential analyst wants direction from either CTC or us, probably they should contact the monitoring authority, and the monitoring authority can email CTC, but you can submit a service ticket as well.
Thank you. Moving on to, I believe, Mary. Mary Masters asks, I have several high school teachers that are SPED credentialed in this scenario. 2 sections/periods of SPED classes, 40%, with only SPED students. 2 periods where they go into regular ed classes and assist SPED students, 40%, and or all students, and 1 period of caseworker time, 20%, no students. The only way I've been able to get their job assignments to not throw an error is to use 50% teacher with a 60-20 coding and 40% itinerant 27. Is this correct? I've tried to use 40 teacher and 20 teacher with the 60-20 and a 40% itinerant 27 with no luck.
Okay, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that this borderlines on the too detailed to really discuss in this kind of an environment. We almost need to sit down and really dig into this one. So, this could be a service desk ticket waiting to happen.
Well, I can tell you that the 60-20 is not appropriate. I can tell you that much. This teacher's pull-out teacher and a push-in, they're a classroom-based teacher and they're a pull-out teacher. So 2 job classifications, one with 27, one with 12. That's really all you need. Now, with respect to the consultation period, the case management, that could even qualify as sort of a teacher prep period, right? So anyway, if you want to send in a service ticket, Mary, we can dig a little deeper into it if that didn't really answer your question.
Okay, let's move on to Naomi. Naomi writes, is it recommended to identify Ed Service Code as 5, no EL services for course sections for which there is no EL students enrolled on census day? If so, is this recommendation meant to avoid any potential misassignments?
Well, you could look at it that way, but remember what we're asking is, okay, so let me back up and provide some context. Historically, we've told you in CalPADS that the education service code should be based on what the teacher's authorized to provide, right? That's typically how you guys were populating that field. With the introduction of assignment monitoring, that has shifted because now they're looking at that service, comparing it to the teacher's EL authorizations and saying, does this teacher have the appropriate authorization to teach this particular service? So if there are no EL students in the class and you list the service and the CTC looks and sees if that teacher has the appropriate authorizations for that service and they don't, it will equal a misassignment. Versus you say no EL services, because really that is what's happening because there's no ELs in the classroom. Then CTC doesn't have anything. You're not saying that that teacher's providing any EL services because there's no English learners in there and you don't get a misassignment. So it really should be a reflection of what's actually occurring in the classroom.
Daniela asks, can a CTE state course code be used at an elementary school if the school feels the CTE state course code is closely aligned with what is taught in the class and the teacher assigned to the course has a preliminary CTE credential? Would this be an issue for CalSAS?
I don't know the answer to whether or not a preliminary CTE credential would generate an exception. I don't know the answer to that. So that's definitely a question for your monitoring authority. I can tell you that if you do choose to use a CTE course code at the elementary level, CalSAS will be looking for a CTE credential. Okay. But I would like to propose an alternative if this scenario fits. So in our CalPADS code sets, in the course group state code sets, we added a brand new course just this year for elementary or middle school career pathway preparation. So what Alex is showing you here is the course group state codes, and there is a course code for elementary or middle school career pathway preparation. There it is. Okay. So it's course code 9236. And these are courses which integrate not only the anchor CTE standards, sort of a career exploration, but also some academic standards. So if that is the case, and this is more of a reflection of your course, then choose 9236. 9236 does not require a CTE credential, but it will very likely require a full credential and some sort of local assignment option.
Okie dokie. Thank you for that. Let's see. Nancy asks, is a district required to collect attendance for PE both in person and or distance learning?
To my knowledge, they are. Yeah, I mean, if it's a course, if it's a scheduled course, they're required to take attendance for the course and also track weekly or daily participation and weekly engagement.
Ellen asks, we work with a school that has 2 tracks. One of the tracks ended on April 23rd, 2020. If the students were expected to return to the LEA at the end of that track's school year, what code should we use so as not to result in dropouts or lost transfers? I tried using E155, but received an error. The E155 exit is valid only between May 15th and August 15th. I submitted this question to CalPADS, but received the answer, you will have to find another exit code. Can you provide more guidance?
That's true.
It's absolutely true. You will have to find a different exit code.
E160?
Yeah, isn't there the intercession exit? Summer intercession?
That's the 490.
I thought that had been killed.
No,
Is it
490 is still out there. Oh, maybe it's not.
I don't know. 490. Let's find out.
E490?
Yeah, no. Because I'm filtering out any
All retired codes.
Mhm.
How long ago did we get rid of 490?
or
I
maybe-
thought it was a couple of years.
Yeah, we may have. Well, I guess my question is this really an intercession break? And if it is, why do you need to exit them? I would just.
So Ellen, I guess we just lack enough information here. So if you would either reply to that service desk ticket again or open a new one and include what has been said and ask for further guidance. And we will try to provide that.
Yeah, if you could include that you were on the Q&A when you're responding to your ticket and that we had asked you. That way the level 1 will send it up to level 2.
Yes. Linda asks, for fall 2 census reporting for subs who are retirees and worked on census day, do we add another year for their staff service within LEA/total years to be reported to CalPADS? My guess is, well, my question is, if they're not, I guess my statement is, if they are not the teacher of record, then they are not going to be reported to CalPADS. So it would become irrelevant because we wouldn't be actually including them in the reporting. So if they are the teacher of record and they took it on as a long-term sub, contract, whatever it is, then I would say yes. But without the additional detail, I'm not sure exactly how to parse that out for you. But again, if you want to submit a service desk ticket, put my name on it, include that, what we just said, I'll be happy to look into it a little farther for you. Moving on to Jerry. Jerry asks, good afternoon. I have a question regarding homeless student data in CalPADS. We have received notices that the CDE will be using CalPADS for the student address to email out P-EBT cards. As a result, we want to ensure that not only addresses are up to date in CalPADS, but also the students marked as homeless based on nighttime residency. In our SIS are identified as homeless in CalPADS. The only homeless student report that I'm aware of is the 5.5 ODS report, the 5.5 end of year 3 snapshot report. I pulled the ODS 5.5 for the 2021 school year, and it included students with exit dates during the 1920 school year. This had me a little concerned in regard to the report's accuracy. Do you have any suggestions or guidance for ensuring that we have all of the students identified properly in CalPADS? A way to reconcile our SIS with the state database. Thank you.
Use the ODS SPRG extract.
Yep, because the ODS report may not have been kept up to current standards that the business rules snapshot has.
Yeah.
But it's a program record, so you can do.
Right, yeah, just pull the SPRG extract using the date ranges, I think.
And then import it into your SPRG and filter for just the homeless students. The 191, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to Ethan. Ethan asks, question 1, what does it mean for an extract still be in process, in this case from about 24 hours ago. I'm not sure if that's relevant. Has something populated the revision date? Has something populated in the revision date time column?
I think I know what was going on here. Because we did a release yesterday, we refreshed everybody and gave them a new revision, but because we had the queue stuck, that's what in process means, is that that file hasn't yet gone through the validations to the point that you could review it. So it stays in process, but yet we forced revisions, and so it updated that timestamp of the revision, even though the file hadn't yet completed. It was craziness.
Yes, it was.
Wait for it to get posted and then wait for another revision.
Okay, moving on to Asha. Asha asks, CalPADS has been so slow. When will we see any change as to the deadline, as the deadline is fast approaching? Well, as we said, hopefully by the end of the day, we will have a communication from CTE announcing what their plan is. But we don't have anything as of yet. Moving on to R. Swan. Are there any updated P-EBT handouts that we can relay to our schools for the 2021 mailing? Everything on CTE website is for summer 2020.
So Alex is showing you the Flash 200 that went out. So this is the most up-to-date information on P-EBT. So I'm not sure if this is what you're expecting.
And additionally, though, there was something in there about further communications, and I think we're waiting for that department to come up with additional communications.
Yeah, because it definitely would be Department of Social Services.
Yeah.
Okay then. Moving on to Cedric. Cedric asks, are we supposed to submit CTO, CBO, and other non-certificated cabinet level positions? Would we use the all 9 SEID?
Okay, so what is really important here, Cedric, is does the position generally require certification? That is the question. And so if you have a chief business officer that is serving in an administrative position and would typically require a credential, then yes, right? Chief technology officers, probably not, but CBOs possibly if they're serving in a certificated position. Now, some of those administrators are allowed to serve in certificated positions, even though they don't have an administrative services credential, based on the fact that they may have a local assignment option to be the chief business officer, right? So it really depends on whether or not that position would generally require certification.
I didn't realize the CBO had to be credentialed.
Well, I'm not saying that they have to. It really depends.
Yeah, okay.
Right? So I know a lot of the
superintendents do.
Yeah, they do. They do. But I would check with HR to see whether or not that position generally requires certification. If there's a credential for it, does the administrative services credential cover duties that this person would typically do? If not, then no, you don't have to report it.
Perfect. Claudia asks, are credentials validated for staff assigned as itinerant push-in, pull-out if they are attached to a course?
Yes. Well, validated in CalSAS, yes.
All right. Jenny Tran, can you please explain more about Flash 202 that just got sent out?
AB 1350, Brandy, we've been waiting for that one.
Oh, no, they sent it out already.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Thanks, Paula and Glenn, for passing the buck here. Okay. Here's the deal, guys. A lot of you have been waiting for this communication for a long time. So AB 1350 was passed in January, and it basically allowed LEAs to issue diplomas to kids who were on track to graduate but couldn't finish out the school year because of COVID, right? So with respect to counting these kids in the 4-year adjusted cohort graduation rate, please understand that the data are not being modified to count these kids as graduates. That's the first thing. The second thing is many of you have been submitting current year enrollments and exits with an E230-100 combination, which indicates that these students are high school graduates. You should not do that because technically, in the eyes of the feds and for auditing purposes for federal program monitoring, these students are not graduates because they didn't actually complete the high school graduation requirements, even though the state statute is telling you that you can give them a diploma, right? They don't really qualify as graduates. Therefore, you should not submit the E230-100 unless that student actually re-enrolled, completed the rest of their course requirements within this academic year, and fulfilled the requirements to be a graduate. Then they could be counted in the 5th year grad rate. I'm sorry.
We're going to get a bunch of questions on this for a while.
I know.
Do you guys have a sense, Brandy, of how many kids qualified?
You know, I don't know. All I know is based on the number of tickets that I received about it, it's probably a lot.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to Larnie. And she asks, is there any report, ODS or Fall 2, that shows course code and some attribute according to the valid code combo and the SEID and or staff name attached to the course or course section?
Yeah, it's 4.3. Yeah, report 4.3 shows all that information. So it's SEID, staff name, the course, the local course. It's all of the course attributes are attached to that record. So yeah, 4.3.
All right, 4.3.
ODS may not be as current with the business rules, though, so rely on the snapshot.
Yes. Hide Low asks, we are required to update SENR, SINF, and CELA for state testings like LPAC, SBAC, and CAST, correct? As the address information and the core demographic information is being pulled from CalPADS, yes. You should keep CalPADS up to date on all of the information for all of your students. So when it is extracted to LPAC, SBAC, CAST, all of the testing entities that Tom's feeds, yes, you should. It needs to be updated.
And the CELA is because of English language acquisition, right? Because Brandy, if they have an EL student, can that student have accommodations at all? I guess anybody could.
Yeah, they can have accommodations. It's mostly learned. It's mostly collected to indicate whether or not the student is eligible to take the summative assessment. So EL are eligible, but kids that have been reclassified, that information should have been updated before the summative window opened, so that they don't get counted in your summative participation rate.
Right. Anna writes, since our adult transition SPED students are listed as grade 12, we now have to test them for LPAC every year as 12th graders, correct? Is there any possibility to exclude them from testing?
No. I mean, they have to at least attempt to take the test. So as long as they are enrolled, there's no exemption, unfortunately.
Alrighty. Shanna asks, if a student is in foster care or living in a group home and there are no biological parents listed on the contact screen, does the state want the education level for the foster parents or case manager or social worker or whoever is listed in contact number 1 and contact number 2 on the contact screen?
I don't really know the answer to this question. We would have to kind of get probably input from the foster liaison here at the CDE. So what I would suggest is submit a service ticket, and I can ask. I mean, my sense is it's probably the educational rights person, but we can find out for you.
Okay, so Jennifer asks, so I see a known issue for GER2 and I'm trying to resolve since it's in review. Do I need to submit the extract again, or will it resolve in the extract already in review? No, it does not dynamically update when you change the data. You need to re-extract it from your SIS and resubmit it to CALPADS, and it will parse against the data again.
After we get it fixed, though. It's not fixed yet.
Yes, after we get it fixed. After. Sue-Ann agreed that Shauna's question was good. Russell asks, we are getting fatal errors for non-classroom based assignment code 6020 for job classification 11 pupil services, but I did not see this in the known issues list. Is this still a valid code combination? Well, let's pull up the valid code combos. And we'll filter on 11. And there we go. And 6020 is still included.
Yeah, it's valid. So maybe depends on what error you're getting.
Could be something else.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Russell, please put in a service desk ticket, including the all the pertinent information. We'll look at it for you.
Job ID and error number being the pertinent information.
Yes. Claudia's Q2. Pauline asks, is there a report that shows us which ELA program eligibility a student has a program code? ELA program eligibility.
I don't know what that means.
LIP?
Yeah, I'm
Maybe program code for LIP.
Yeah, there's a LIP program report.
But that was in fall 1.
Yes, you are right.
And we don't think we have an ODS for it. So it is you could do a ODS extract and look for that program codes. There's many.
Yeah, if that's what she's asking for. It's kind of unclear.
So you can get it as of your fall 1. And if you want to see it ongoing, then you have to do a SPRG ODS extract and filter on those codes.
okay. So Russell has a Q2. Susan asks, if a SPED PSTS student has to be surveyed, has exited back to general education and is currently a 10th grader, is the appropriate survey answer other? It seems that the only thing left. My understanding was that they don't get surveyed until after they have actually left high school. So one of the preconditions was actually separating permanently from the school or from the LEA. So I don't think that they are actually a 10th grader can be surveyed. Brandy, am I right on that?
They can only be surveyed if they leave the school and they don't come back.
That's
right.
Already in the FAQ there on the screen that Alex is showing. Did not enroll in the current academic year as well.
Yeah.
So Susan, if they have re-enrolled as a 10th grader, as you state, then they are not eligible to be surveyed yet.
Yeah, exits back to general ed don't count.
All right, and I don't recall whether Rebecca had a question, so let me check. Okay, I don't see anything. So we're going to answer Rebecca. Rebecca asks, for the use of the course setting, I just want to clarify its purpose, please. Per my last email reply from Brandy, my understanding is that if teachers teaching grades 5 through 8 are swapping the same group of students between 2 or more courses, and we have used the course setting indicator, then does this mean that they will not trigger an exception error due to the teachers who normally teach at a middle school typically have a single subject credential, not multiple subject credential? What Brandy had stated was that, quote, if a teacher has the appropriate single subject authorizations, it is not necessary, all in caps, to list the course as part of the middle school course setting, end quote. I'm sorry, but my staff is confused and I'm not the person to help clarify it.
So Rebecca,
Quit laughing in the background, Brandy.
I'm laughing because you inserted a piece of information that either you didn't write in your original email or I didn't catch, which is there's 2 teachers swapping kids, and that I don't think that was included in the original email. So course settings, what is the intent of a middle school course setting? There is a law that basically says that if a middle school teacher is teaching grades 5 through 8, and she's teaching departmentalized courses, but she's coring those subjects together. So she's coring English and math together, and she's coring, science and history, social science together, right? She's coring those subjects. So it's 2 or more subjects, but she's teaching those subjects to the same kids in the same day. So the same group of kids would have to be in period 1, 2, 3, and 4 for any of those subjects that are being cored, right? It's the same group of kids in the same day. If that's the case, and that teacher has a multiple subject credential, you identify that course as a middle school course setting. Because if you do, it means, yeah, this teacher's teaching these as part of a core, which means that her multiple subject credential is okay. Now, if you have a teacher that has single subject authorizations in math, science, English, and history, then you don't have to report them as part of a middle school core because she already has the single subject authorizations. I hope that answers the question. But the swapping thing, that threw me off. So if that didn't, then just follow up with me.
Fair enough. Moving on to Alice. Alice writes, can I clarify if we are required to report all K through 12 sections, including self-contained and departmentalized? As an example, our K through 5 students are assigned to 5 different classes, but it's the same teacher for all classes. Do we report out all 5 sections as self-contained, or should we report this out as departmentalized?
Okay. For self-contained settings in K5, I know a lot of your student information systems, you've configured them to departmentalize the content for grading purposes. However, you should not report up self-contained courses in a departmentalized fashion for elementary grades. Here's why. You send up 5 sections for the same teacher, saying that she's teaching English, math, history, science, and music, okay? Because that's what she teaches in her self-contained class. Then the CTC is going to look at that, and they could potentially say, okay, well, you have to have single subject authorizations because it looks like you're teaching in a departmentalized fashion. Well, that teacher's not teaching in a departmentalized fashion. So Alex is showing you the slides. What is considered this one is departmentalized, but the other one is, what is a self-contained course? It's where one teacher is teaching all subjects to one group of kids throughout the day. That is self-contained. So report it as 1,000. Do not departmentalize elementary settings unless, if you want to go down to the departmentalized elementary settings slide, there we go. Unless you have a teacher who is teaching one area of content to multiple groups of kids throughout the day. We usually see this most in music at the elementary level, PE, and art. That's where we see it most. You have designated art teachers, designated PE teachers, designated music teachers, and they teach music all day to different groups of kids. Those are departmentalized elementary assignments, and the only ones that should be recorded as departmentalized elementary assignments.
So Brandy, should she work with her SIS vendor if they're breaking it out?
Yeah, because I know that some, and I don't know if it's a specific vendor. I know one vendor in particular, I don't want to call them out, but I know one vendor in particular does it that way. They allow their LEAs to set up departmentalized courses at the elementary level for grading purposes, but it causes major issues. It's going to cause major issues for credentialing and assignment monitoring.
Okay. Let's see. That was Alice. So we will go to Emily. Emily asks, if LAOs were not board approved before Census Day, should we not report the LEA code with our CRSE codes, or should we still send this up? Will we get an exception if the LAOs were approved after Census Day?
So if your monitoring authority is doing their job, it'll be a misassignment or a corrected misassignment, right? So yeah, the rule is, and Alex is showing you here, a local assignment option should be in place at the start of the assignment, minimally by information day, in order to report that local assignment in the course record in fall 2. If the approval date is after that and your monitoring authority is doing their job, they're going to say, no, this is a corrected misassignment. Still a misassignment, even though you corrected it after information day and put this teacher on a local assignment option.
Okay. Moving on to Monica. Monica asks, what would be some reasons why a district would show zeros on the county authorization 1.17 for FRPM English Learner Foster Count? I thought it might be due to not certifying Fall 1 in time. However, the district says they certified by the deadline. Any other reasons? I see data for other districts.
I had that happen to me in 1920 to one of my county authorizing LEAs. One of their schools didn't show up and they were certified. And I was able to send them the LEA's report. I'm wondering if it's a similar issue. If you want to send in a ticket, ask for Angela and let me know the school, their LEA name. I'll see if I can track it down for you.
Perfect, thank you. What was it in 1920 for that?
It didn't get fixed. It just the school, all the other LEAs in the county showed up except for this one LEA, even though they certified on time. So I never got to the bottom of it.
Okay. Let's see. Jill asks, clarify, please. Is it not a misassignment if an online course is learner-led, but the teacher of record has a full credential in the different content area?
It is not, because learner-led courses are not required to have credentialed teachers. So in the slideshow, in the assignment monitoring training, there is a slide that specifically addresses online courses and what the requirements are. So there's a graphic. It's a graphic, Alex. It's probably not. It's right there. Online courses. Here we go. There's the graphic. So if you look at the very last box on the right-hand side, it basically says if the class is, if it's a student-directed course, then the adult in the classroom is not required to hold a credential and may be classified staff. There you go. So it should not be a misassignment.
Perfect. Good answer. Thank you. Shoba asks, we have an RSP department department head who does not have any students assigned. I am reporting this teacher with the code 27 and course RSP with course code 9231. Is this correct?
So the department head, it sounds like she's like a program coordinator. I mean, you could report her as an RSP teacher, but she's not instructing students. It sounds like she's the department head. So I would probably report that teacher with a non-classroom based or support assignment. So you can still use the job classification of teacher, but with respect to the non-classroom based or support assignment code, because again, the intent with reporting 9231 is reporting RSP teachers who are providing pull out, pull in, and even classroom based instruction. But in this case, this RSP she's a department head, right? She's a resource specialist, but she's the head of that department. So it's a non-classroom based or support assignment.
Okay. Angela asks, what differentiates an itinerant teacher from a teacher, a 27 versus a 12? And the clarification was a teacher who is at more than one site.
You don't have to have students attached to itinerant 27.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, we created that pull out, push in itinerant as in response to what we heard from you at an LEA level. Like, okay, we want to report this teacher and we want to report their assignment, but they don't have a roster. They don't take attendance for pull out RSP or pull out English support, right? So how do we report that teacher's assignment? We said, okay, we'll use job class 27, report the teacher's assignment, but you're not required to report students attached to that course. That's the difference between 12 and 27. So if you use 12, you need students enrolled in the course.
Joaquin asks, if we have a class coded with 5 no EL services because report 4.3 currently shows no ELs enrolled, but we have a TBD student enrolled in that class who became EL after 10.7, should that course have EL services listed?
Well, again, if we're operating on the premise that, oh God, this is such a weird year. Okay.
What is the teacher doing?
Yeah. Well, okay. So one of the issues is that, number one, for that EL, theoretically, you could have gotten supplemental and concentration grant funding for that student to specifically, help provide additional services for that student. And in addition, your Title III allocation is going to give you funding, EL funding, for any student that was in a provisional EL status on information day, okay? So that TBD, theoretically, should have been providing services to that student, okay? So if in fact the teacher was providing EL services to that provisional EL on information day, I don't think there's any harm in reporting it for purposes of fall 2. Even though on our fall 2 report, the EL services reports, we're really only looking at kids who were ELs on information day. That report is not going to look at any ELs that became ELs after 10.7. So it's really up to you, but just understand that whatever EL service code you use in that course record is going to be compared against the teacher's EL authorizations. That's all I'm saying. Even if there were no EL students enrolled.
Okay. Heather asks, for the student aid/assistance, you said that the teacher has to be fully credentialed teacher if the student is receiving a grade for that class. Does this pertain to middle school students who are receiving participation credit as well? And there was a continuation 1 minute later that said, I think Brandy mentioned a CTE credential does not count. And I think our middle school office aid sections are assigned to a teacher with the CTE credential.
So participation credit. So I think that I don't know. It said, according to CTC, it's grades or credits. So if they're receiving participation credit at the middle school level and you're submitting that course to CALPADS, then it has to have a fully credentialed teacher. And Jerry, you are right. If you have CTE teachers who have assigned to student assistant courses, those will generate exceptions in CalSAS and will probably ultimately be misassignments because you have to have a teacher with a full credential. Now, if they don't issue grades or credits, then you can elect not to submit the course to CalPADS.
Okay. All right. Christina asks, CRSE0457 error. Not sure how to clear this error. Please guide me. Christina, I'm going to ask you to please put in a service desk ticket.
Well, I think we can walk her through just what she needs to look for. Alex has the error list open. At the bottom in the footer of CalPADS is the error list. You open the error list, go to the CRSE tab. Alex has scrolled up to the course section tab, CRSE0457, and it's telling us that you populated a course as distance learning, but you didn't tell us what type of online instruction that they're using. So go check that field in your local SIS, make sure it's populated for all those courses, and then send the data back up.
Okay, Fabiola asks, we are an elementary district. We have itinerant teachers who provide support in multiple subjects to general ed students. As instructed, we are creating sections with no students assigned. Can we use state course code 9230?
Is that, and I think that's the RTI MTSS, and the answer is yes. Yes, you can.
Simple enough. Okay. Suzanne asks, getting an error message, object reference not set to an instance of an object for CRSE error report. Object reference not set to an instance of an object.
Not that one, Alex.
No.
There should be another one. The next one, maybe.
Oh, this one?
It's the error report.
Yeah,
I think
there.
so.
Wait. Yeah, there you are. And there is a workaround. So Suzanne, she's on the known issues list, which is also in the footer of CalPADS. It gets updated daily. So you have two options on the report that you're trying to run. In the error dropdown, choose one of the errors and a school, and it'll work. Or alternatively, you can go to the extracts screen and download the rejected records extract for that course file.
Okay. Couple Q2s. Gabby asks, I have 482 GER2s on my latest SCSE file. I know this is a known issue. When would I know to rerun my SCSE file to check for errors again? What is the correct process so I can move on my PSTS file?
So good question. You can check this known issues daily if you'd like, or if you'd like to get an email, send in a ticket and ask to be linked to this ticket. It's 5644 is the problem.
But you can still move on to the PSTS while we wait, because that's your survey from previous year kids.
And Paul, I think you skipped Suzanne's question.
No, that was a Q2 and a Q3. Suzanne was up above as well.
Oh.
So we answered her original question, and then she asked two more questions.
Got it.
See, I'm paying attention.
You're on it, man.
So I would say, Gabby, that the PSTS is the one file that doesn't have to be in sequence. The other 4 files for Fall 2 have to follow a sequence, and you got to complete them all, right? But the PSTS is kind of outside of that. So
just one more caveat to remember.
Continue on with PSTS.
Moving on to Sandra. Sandra asks, Brandy, AB 1351, what exit grad code should we be using for these students if we cannot use the E23100?
Good question.
Well, theoretically, last year, what you should have done is exited them with what Alex is showing you there, right? So E23360, which completed grade 12, did not meet grad requirements. Because technically for the 4-year ACGR, that's how they're going to be counted anyway. And you know, these kids, again, according to the federal definition, they do not meet the federal definition of a graduate because they never completed their coursework. They didn't
on time.
Right. They didn't, well, on time, or some of them wouldn't
do it at all.
I issued a diploma to a kid. Who the heck is going to want to come back and re-enroll just so I can get 50-year grad credit? You know? So, and you know, first of all, I want to apologize that this took so long to get out, but it was not because the CalPADS office was not diligently trying to get the the division that was responsible for getting this information out to formulate the guidance. Every time I would get a ticket from any of you, I literally would forward it to my boss, who then would forward it to the other person. So it's not because we haven't been trying.
Okay. So that was Sandra. Denise asks, does Flash 202 have any effect on I/S high schools? Not
Independent
sure.
Study.
Yeah.
Okay, independent study, got it. We have a charter school that's all work-based and their students continue working at home.
If they completed their coursework and they graduated, right? So this is only affecting kids who were not able to complete the school year. And in this case, if your kids continue to work at home and they completed their grad requirements, you can report them as graduates. It's only those kids who weren't able to go back to school and who were not able to join remotely or complete any of their work through an independent study program. That's who we're talking about here.
Okay. Aaron states, hello, I have a ticket in, but I haven't received a response. I have an odd situation where a student was not on home and hospital or independent study, but they were only taking advisory from start of school and didn't start an online fuel course until mid-November. I'm getting a Cert 77 because the student doesn't have a course assigned to them. Advisory is the only course that's not reported. If we mark the student for home and hospital, does that resolve the error?
No.
Hmm.
They need a course. And if it's advisory, send up a homeroom course. Because that's what an advisory course is. It's a homeroom course. So send up the homeroom course.
All right. Pauline said, thank you. I thought it was included in fall 2 for some reason. K, for the EBT pull on the FRPM students, if the student has transferred to another school but does not have another SPRG record for their current school, will the student's family still receive the EBT cards?
No, they have to have an FRPM record at that school, or they have to be directly certified.
At the time that they do the poll. So,
Yeah.
Maybe the first day that they're at the new school, they don't, but within, a couple of days and it's before the poll. So you got to stay on top of those transferring kids.
Yeah.
Yep. And looks like Rebecca Morales was referring to Russell at the 340 mark, had a little bit of crosstalk for you. Susan at 340, question 1, PSTS, what is the expectation of survey participation? We were able to get 100% of our CTE students, yet only about 50% of our SPED students.
Okay, so the first thing that I want to say, just because we were getting kind of hints of this in the listserv, just remember you're not required to submit the PSTS for your SPED students right now. I mean, that collection doesn't even start happening until May. And you're not technically supposed to survey students with disabilities until 12 months after they exit, right? So these collections are done at 2 different points in time. So the PSTS that you are sending up right now should only reflect CTE completers. Okay, the only time they should reflect students with disabilities is if that student with disabilities was also a CTE completer that exited last year. Okay, so if you got 100% of your CTE students, that's awesome, great. You met the requirement. but there is no threshold. I should be clear about the CTE data. It's like you're not going to get dinged if you only get 50% of kids to respond, right? So if you weren't able to get a hold of them, just let us know that you weren't able to get a hold of them or they declined to answer.
So they should account for all of their kids. So if they don't respond, then have that as your answer or what you send up for that kid, right?
Yes.
Very good. Moving on to Michael. Michael asks, I have a student who came to the counselor's office with the transcript showing the counselor that they had completed a community college English class this year. How do I add this singleton to our upload? Do I need to create a section and assign the teacher and mark the class as dual enrollment so I can, or can I somehow enter this info into the student directly into CALPADS as being dual enrolled, as we are going to give them English credit?
This is really dependent on your student information system vendor, right? Different vendors do it different ways. I know ARIES has a very, very specific process for identifying courses that earn college credit, where the college credit was earned at on a college course that was taken completely outside or not affiliated with the LEA, right? It's not a dual enrollment course. So ARIES has a really specific process. I don't know what your SIS is, but most of the other SIS vendors require that you create a course section for that college course and then submit up the CRSE record for that course section. So it's dependent on your SIS vendor, but I would definitely check with your SIS vendor. And Alex is showing you here what the expectation is in terms of the data population in CALPADS.
And I would caution you on doing it directly in CALPADS, because isn't this a full replacement that potentially if you make additional changes after the fact, you could wipe out what you do online.
Mm-hmm.
It's always best to have it coming from the local system.
All right, and Aaron weighed in to give Michael some advice at the 3:43 mark. Shelley writes, would you please share the PowerPoint that Alex showed the CALPADS and assignment monitoring in winter 2021? And it looks like Angela has shared that out at the 3:46 mark.
But you can find it.
But you can find it.
On our website.
In the resource.
Posted it. Yeah.
All right.
Go to that resource page and, type in the search and things will magically appear. You didn't even know existed.
I used the keyword assignment to find it in that resources search.
All right, and Carla asks, for the end of year 1 submission, I manually add college courses for the students that have completed at a local community college for the CCI. For fall 2, do I have to add the course students that are currently enrolled in at our local community college? These courses are not in our SIS.
There's no benefit to doing it, if I'm being honest. So there's no benefit to doing it in fall 2. That's what I mean, right? Reporting these courses that they're enrolled in the community college, because really the reason we collect community college course data is specifically for CCI. Those data are harvested from our end of year 1 submission. So, if the kids are enrolled in those courses, but they haven't completed, you don't even know whether or not they're going to earn college credit. So I wouldn't even bother until end of year.
Okay. Moving on. Connie has posted what appears to be a fall 2 advanced reporting meeting chat. So that's available at the 3:55 timestamp. I'm not sure what it's there for. A couple Q3, Q2. CJ writes, I am new in this role. My district has not and is not currently reporting staff, assistant, and peer tutor sections, secondary school district. We have not reported these courses, grades 9 through 12. Students receive elective credit for pass-fail grading only. What is the outcome if they are not reported this year?
A staff assistant and a peer tutor?
Yeah, okay. So staff assistant is a student assistant course. Looks like there are teachers assigned to these courses and they're receiving elective credit. Even if it's pass-fail, it's elective credit for this particular student assistant course. That you should be reporting those courses because the kids are getting credit for them, right? They're part of the instructional day. Now, the peer tutor, those are a little bit of we don't really have a course code for that. But so I would need to check with CTC because my assumption is that even though it's a peer tutor section, there's a certificated staff member assigned to that peer tutor section, right? There's some staff member providing, even though it's the student providing peer tutoring, there's probably a teacher that assists with that. So I would say that, yes, they should probably both be reported. They should probably both be reported as student assistant courses right now because they receive elective credit. And we don't have something specifically for peer tutoring. We have one for peer counseling, but we don't have one for peer tutor.
Caching in my Q1 for a Q2. I saw in the chat that this is very important for the group as a whole. Clarification on calling a section SPED 700. I heard that several times in the QA that all students must be SPED to designated class as SPED. However, the documentation says majority of students are needed, which is correct.
So the reason the documentation was previously saying majority was because that was what we had understood, but then got further clarification from CTC, and it's all, right? So CTC said it's really odd that you would have 90% students with disabilities in a class and then have general ed students in that same class. And whether or not it's appropriate is another issue. So if the class is 100% students with disabilities and that curriculum and course was designed specifically for students with disabilities, and Alex, I think we actually, no, you know what? This isn't in our FAQs.
It's not.
Oh, no.
I don't think it made it in there. But if it was designed specifically for students with disabilities, then you should use code 700. So there is an FAQ on how to report special education assignments, right? And it was just recently added. So if you type in like special education
Or instructional strategy.
That's what I was looking for, but let's see. Nope.
it's probably at the very bottom. If you just keep going, is it not showing up at all?
On the bottom of all two.
Should be. I mean, it's all the new ones that were added.
Staff and seeds.
No. All right. It's got to be here somewhere because he told me that they had been updated. So.
Well, we're going to call it a day. We're at quarter past. I want to thank everybody for showing up. I hope you learned something today. I hope you take something away from this. We're here every Wednesday. We'll be back next Wednesday. And if you have a problem between now and then, please open up a service desk ticket and we will get back to you as quickly as possible. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for everything you're doing. Keep it up.